Instagram is so polished and everybody tries to create such prettied up content, but I feel like we've created a more authentic platform. We built this scoring system to basically showcase the parts of the story that an antler alone doesn't tell. I believe if we can teach people to cook better, we can make them more passionate about hunting because they realize the potential of the meat. There are things that we see as Americans and it's like, oh, that feels wrong, but it's only because we're not exposed to it in the same way that an anti-hunter isn't exposed to hunting. He even at one point was like, okay, assume I get a deer. How do I cut it up to fit into a Honda Civic? People are sharing deer that they might be embarrassed to share on an Instagram. And that's what it's all about. This is Brad Luttrell. You're listening to Living Country in the City, and we're about to go wild on episode 56.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey y'all, welcome to episode 56 of Living Country in the City. Now, before I get started, I just want to give a big thank you to Sawyer for hopping on board and sponsoring this podcast. If you're looking for some of the most effective and reliable products that you can take out into the backcountry, with their 30 years of experience, you really can't go wrong with Sawyer. You know, they've got some of the best water filtration and outdoor protection products that I've ever used. And they're really big supporters of what I'm doing here at Living Country in the City. So check out their products at sawyer.com. That's SAWYER.com. I'm personally a big fan of their gravity filtration systems for camp water, and with all the floorless shelters and tarp tents that I like to use, their different varieties of bug repellents are pretty much key for keeping the creepy crawlies off of me. So also a big thank you to everyone who has logged onto my support page, bought Living Country in the City merch from my online store, and especially those of you who have visited my Patreon and have been willing to support Living Country in the City financially. If y'all are interested in helping to support Living Country in the City, seeing it grow and seeing what I've been putting out continue, as well as you can get some pretty sweet rewards along the way, make sure you check out my support page at livingcountryinthecity.com/support. All right, now on to today's festivities. For episode 56, we are going to get a little wild because I am talking with Mr. Brad Luttrell, co-founder of the GoWild app. Now, this is not your average run-of-the-mill hunting utility or social media app, but, you know, I'll let him tell you a bit more about it. So, Brad, thanks for hopping on the show with me today.
Absolutely. I'm excited we can make it work.
So why don't we start out, if you could just give me maybe a little bit of background about yourself, kind of how you got your start in the outdoors and hunting, fishing, all of that.
Sure. You know, it's kind of funny. I actually didn't even know I was growing up experiencing the outdoors because that's just how it was. Kind of like how I didn't realize I even had a country accent until I went to college, which it's not as bad now. People are going to hear that and be like, you don't have an accent. I'm getting judged already. But, you know, I went to University of Kentucky in Lexington, which to a lot of people would be a country college, but for me, coming from southeastern Kentucky, I showed up there and I realized like how funny I sounded and that how different other people were. And you know, up until that point in my life, it never even occurred to me that hunting was something that people might not support. So, but I grew up in southeastern Kentucky. I grew up in the outdoors. I was never a hardcore hunter. You know, my dad took me squirrel hunting at a really young age. We fished a lot, and my uncles hunted deer all the time. So I grew up seeing a common sight to come, you know, to my papa's garage and see 2 or 3 deer hanging from the doors. And then it was more into my 20s though when I started deer hunting myself and dove hunting. I've done a lot of dove hunting and turkey hunting the past 2 or 3 years, and then dove hunting the past, deer hunting the past 6 or 7, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. So, but I would say, you know, I feel like, and I've heard this experience a lot, you know, I went to college and honestly didn't do any of this as much. You know, you're just having different experiences than what you're used to. That's kind of part of the fun of it. But after a couple years of being out of school, I found myself really being pulled back into it, and it started, you know, once I graduated college, it started back with just camping and hiking and really wanting to get back in touch with the outdoors. And I did some of that stuff in college, but not a lot. And then, you know, just little by little, it's like all of a sudden, I feel like now I'm like, oh, I'm the co-founder of a outdoors app. Like that happened. It feels like it happened kind of quickly when you think about it that way. But really, just little by little every year, you get a little more into this or that. So what really got the app going was that I was deer hunting with a guy, and I thought I was getting to figure it out and really becoming a good deer hunter. But when he was no longer in my life, I realized I was just hanging out with a good deer hunter. So started trying to teach myself. And that first season, I hunted as hard as I ever had. Seriously, like the most days I'd ever hunted through a rifle season. And I saw one deer in I don't know, a week and a half of trying, and was really defeated by that. So I was determined to get better, and I started doing research, and really was discouraged by the amount of misinformation out there, or information that was relevant to people out west, but not necessarily in Kentucky. It's very different to hunt here than it is in Montana. So I realized that it was harder than I thought to even try to learn it, because I didn't have a mentor that I could go to. I mean, my cousins hunt, and they've all been supportive. And when I get to see them, my cousin Jack will sit down and tell me everything I want to know about shooting a deer with a bow, but I don't see them very often. The easiest thing to do is to hop on YouTube or something now. And I was having a hard time finding relevant information. And then I also had an experience where I'd posted a deer on Facebook, and I got harassed a little bit by people I knew. It wasn't bad, but it was more of the fact that it was people I knew that really bothered me and sat with me. So
are you talking about like harassed from other hunters, or like anti-hunter harassment?
Yeah, it was like an anti-hunting comment. The exact comment that still, like, I remember it. So it obviously 5 years later or whatever it is, it obviously stuck with me. Was do you feel like a man now? And that, like, I don't know why, like, I've never been bothered by anything, but that really, like, that was the thought that would come back to me while I'd be scouting. I would think about that comment, and the final thought that really made me decide, like, I'm going to figure out something about this was, I was hanging trail cameras and I was walking, and I was like, I'm going to put all this effort in, and I don't even know if I'm going to want to post anything I get on Facebook. It's just not even worth it to get all the backlash. And then it occurred to me, I was like, man, what a shame it is that you can love something so much and be embarrassed to talk about it. And, it even takes vulnerability to admit that you're embarrassed by that. Like it's a whole confliction of emotions across the board. But that was really when I decided to found GoWild. I didn't know what GoWild was going to be. But, part of this too is an entrepreneurial story that I had been looking for something to do. I've got the entrepreneur bug. I wanted to do something. I just couldn't figure out what it was. I'd been my own boss before, and I really wanted to have something that I could drive. I'm in advertising by day, so you're doing a lot of creativity, but it's always someone else always has that final say. So I wanted something that was mine, and that I could work on and be proud of in a different way. So that started it, man. I mean, that was August of 2016. So it's almost February of 2018. It's been a year and a half. I told my wife, I was talking to her, and I was like, I just randomly spewed off something about one of my co-founders, and I was like, yeah, they've been with me like a year and a half. And I was like, oh my God, this feels like we just started. Like, I could not believe it when it came out of my mouth, when I actually realized how long we've been doing this now.
I have that same, like, I'm coming up on, I'm about a month away from my 1 year anniversary starting the podcast, releasing my first episode. And it's weird when you start thinking about it, especially when you're just starting. I think you're just hammering away and just grinding and grinding and grinding and working, and you don't really realize how much time has passed until all of a sudden you're looking up and, you see all that trail behind you.
Yeah, man, it's funny. I have friends who are like, "You're building an empire. You're gonna be huge. It's gonna be worth millions of dollars." And I'm like, maybe, but I don't think like that, because that's really daunting to me, and it feels really, if you had started out and you're like, "I've got to build the next Joe Rogan experience," that's
jeez.
Yeah, you like think well that's what like that when people say stuff to me about the app, it's like you're building the next Instagram. It's like do you like the weight of that would kill you if you're trying to do that every day and figure that out. But you set these small milestones. So for you, it might be trying to find that next good interview. And through building that series of good interviews, you've talked to some really big people now, which holistically is going to make your show really good. So same thing for us. We've started small. It started with us just a logo and an Instagram account. A lot of people knew us as the cool guys on Instagram that were posting crazy stuff before they even knew that we're. Actually, I still think a lot of people follow us and don't even realize that we're an app, despite being part of the name. I really do. A lot of people are just like, "You guys have the best account on Instagram," and I'm like, "Yeah, we do other stuff too, though," and they have no idea. But if we set out to build Instagram overnight, you wouldn't be able to get there. But through, I remember now, like the first time, when, like all of us, we weren't together. All of my business partners. There's 7 partners total in GoWild. We have a bunch of contractors that we work with, but we were all on. We use a system called Slack for chat. And we're essentially
I'm very familiar with Slack.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there. We're all just refreshing the counter, and I mean twice a second, waiting on that 10,000 mark to tick over. So and now we're significantly past that, and it's just like that was such a milestone that we were chasing. And now you look back, and it's like, okay, yeah, but now I want, I want 50. Like you look at the next milestone, and it's just funny how quickly you can look back and things are so compressed all of a sudden.
I was just looking back at some of the download numbers of the podcast, and it's just funny looking. And I was looking at my first month of releasing, and I think on average each episode alone now totals more downloads than I got total that entire first month. And it's it's funny, it's a lot like hunting. When you start out doing anything new, you've got to be realistic, set some goals, and suddenly, those goals that seem so improbable when you first started are now run of the mill almost, and you're suddenly like, oh, what's another 10,000 downloads? We want 100,
Yeah. We rolled over after 10,000 when we hit 11. Somebody said, do we not celebrate these anymore? Because we were like every 1,000. And I was like, well, now I'm looking at 15. It's like you just all of a sudden things change when you get to that major milestone. And funny, like exact same thing you're talking about with your podcast. When we rolled this thing out, man, we went into beta in the summer. I said a year and a half, but this thing was built very quickly. And we built it. I had all my co-founders into December. We started in January. New Year's Day, we all came over to my house and started working on it, and end of December, we planned it out, and then we start working on it in that New Year's Day. And then June or July, we roll out beta testing, and we had 100 people, and it had taken me 6 months to get 100 people that agreed to test it. And so I look back now and I'm like, holy crap, that took so much work. And now we're getting an average of about 100 people a day to download it. We've seen some spikes. Like 283 people downloaded it on New Year's Eve and installed it. Probably more downloaded it, but that's how many actually went through and created accounts. So like now to look back at beta testing, I was like, I was geeking out to see people in something that we built, posting their hunts and stuff. And now it's the norm, which is so cool to see the support of people like you. And, a lot of the guys in the app now, which none of us have ever met. It's just like you get to know guys like Jimmy Glazer, I guess that's how you say his name, but like Jimmy and David Ferguson and all these guys are posting all the time. And I've never met any of them, but I feel like I know who they are now, which is it's been one of the cooler experiences of it is, getting to know these people. And I feel like it's a more intimate platform than an Instagram. I feel like Instagram everything is so polished and everybody tries to create such prettied up content, which used to be what I loved about it. And I still think that's a part of what I appreciate about it. But I feel like we've created a more authentic platform. And that's really like, that's what I love the most about it is just, it's very raw. It's very, because people are tracking like their scouting and their hunting trips and with that time log that's on there that you're aware of. And I think that need to log something every time you do one of those makes you need content. So you're not taking the very best picture you took of the month. You're like, it's a picture of you shooting a bow, no matter if it's pretty or not. And while I guess like that might be a downside for some people compared to an Instagram, to me, I like it more because it's raw and it's real.
It's very interesting because, it is a very intimate experience, I think, for those reasons. But it's so funny because we'll get in more to exactly kind of what the app is, but you would think like, okay, Instagram or Facebook, that would be a very intimate experience because I choose who I interact with on there, who I follow. It's a very curated in one way, versus GoWild is very curated in a different way.
Yeah, but it's curated by content instead of who
you're not following specific people or anything. You're not. It's such a different experience, and you'd almost think like that would make it less intimate, but it has such a different effect. But with that, let's talk a little bit actually about what GoWild is for those who haven't downloaded it, haven't checked it out yet. I'll admit, I saw it and I was like, it sounds like an interesting idea, but I'm like, I looked at my phone and I do app development too, so I already have enough apps to kill a.
You're oversaturated at this point.
Kill a phone, and then when I first started hunting, I downloaded just about every possible hunting app you could imagine, and then I was just like, okay, cool. At that point, I was sick of them, and I'm like, it's one more hunting app. It sounds interesting, but it's it's going to be something I'll play with for like 10 minutes, like. This other thing for logging my hunts or marking these locations or whatever this is, and then I'll get sick of it. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised when I really started, when I gave it a chance and started using it.
Yeah,
I actually think it was after when I really started using it. I hadn't even created an account yet. I had the app downloaded. But it was after your podcast with Cody Rich that that I finally went. I was like, okay, this sounds really, really sick. I got to go do this now, So
yeah.
But so why don't you tell me what is it that makes GoWild unique as far as within this hunting app community? Why is it not just another Instagram? Why is it not just and nothing against YouTube and these other platforms, but what is it that makes GoWild really unique?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of funny. I'll hit that question, but while I'm thinking of it, right before you called me, I was looking at one of our ads that's running on Facebook right now. This guy was ripping GoWild, and I was kind of confused because full like rant paragraph, no punctuation. I'm like trying to read it. I'm like, what is he talking about? And then another guy replies, and he's like, I know, right? And then I read back through it, and I finally like through their conversation of them kind of bandwagoning together against this thing that they've obviously never tried. They think it's an app where it gives up your location. So there are apps out there right now that if you're fishing, you can log your catch and it tells exactly what lake you're on. And even if it's a big enough lake, it'll tell you what part of the lake you're on. So they're like, I'm tired of these apps. I've seen enough of this to where I give up my fishing spot and all of a sudden there's more people there. And I'm just like, that's try it, at least try it. If you're going to spend time to rip it, you could at least try it and see if it's actually that.
Yeah.
But I was kind of, that's, neither here nor there. That stuff happens all the time. But, you mentioned a couple of competitors there. There's a lot of them out there. And that December meeting I was talking about, we got together and I had done enough research, and it took me 3 months to pull together a team. So I'd been researching that whole time, and I knew what I didn't want to be, but I didn't necessarily know what we were going to build. So I had decided, you mentioned how many apps there are. Most of them are utility apps. So they are an app you're going to use during hunting season. And then I've had most people tell me, they're like, yeah, I delete it after the end of the season because, it maps properties and I don't need to do that in the off season. It's just taking up, 60, 70 megs on my phone. So I just delete it and reinstall it come September. So we knew that was a problem we didn't want to have. We wanted to be something that you could use year round. So that kind of framed up our whole thought process of how we're going to build this thing is like, okay, whatever it is, it's got to be something that is interesting enough to come back to every day. Like, I want you opening it up every day. So that started with social media. We're like, well, this is not being done well. And at the time, YouTube was not even, they didn't have an app when I was doing the research. And just so everybody knows, like, if you're aware of them, cool. If not, I don't care if you're using them or if you're using us. I just want people to have a place where they feel like they can talk comfortably. So those guys seem like good guys, and we wish them all the best. I think the community is big enough to support both of us. I think the most important thing is that we're giving new hunters, whether our app or theirs or some other app, a place where they can post and feel comfortable. But when I look at the full landscape, and this isn't a dig at them, this is just a full comment on the landscape, because again, when I started this process, I didn't even know about them because they hadn't launched yet. So we're looking at some of the other competitors out there who are no longer even, I think they're defunct now, but so I'm looking at them and I'm like, man, it's just not good. You mentioned I'm in web development. I've never built an app before, but I'm in web development. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, I can beat it. Like, I don't know how to build an app, but I can figure it out and do better than what's out there. Because most of it was very apparent that it was a hunter that decided they were going to build an app, not an app developer who decided to build an app for hunting, which is a very different approach because aesthetics matter, functionality matters. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is that you downloaded it and were surprised by the experience. Even some of the development decisions we've made, we built this thing the hard way. We could have built it the easier way and had Android up, and everybody would be happy and not harassing me every day asking where the Android app is, right? And there's been days when I'm like, did we make the wrong decision? But I still think we did it the right way because we built custom to that platform. When Android comes out, it'll be built custom to that platform. And you can just tell the difference in an app. And you may not know it consciously, but it's the same. When people see bad design, they know it, but they don't know why. It's the same thing with an app. If you use an app that's poorly developed, you can tell. So, making those kind of decisions and doing it the hard way, I think made a big difference in where we ended up. But when we started, you ask what makes us unique. I think if I can bring this long answer I'm giving you back, what makes us unique is that we have a social media app, but you mentioned earlier on how we focus on content, not people. Now, people are coming, but out of the gate, we wanted to do things differently, if for no other reason, because that's how we're going to catch people's attention and hold them. If we came out and did all the things that everybody else was doing, it's going to be really hard to compete with Facebook, for example. If you just build Facebook and color it camo, that's not enough because people are going to realize that you didn't build Facebook as well as Facebook did it, so they're going to go back to them. And at the end of the day, I don't want to compete with a company that's got 20,000 employees when I've got 7. So we looked for things that nobody else was doing. So that's the trophy log was something that came out of one of those first conversations, and I've still got this sheet that we wrote it down on, one of those oversized Post-it notes, and we realized there's a problem and you've seen this, you're on Instagram, you've got a good following, so I'm sure you've seen this, that when you post a deer, if you see anybody post a big deer, especially one that's got like a drop tine or something, first thing people start doing is saying, what high fence farm did you kill it at? Or how much did you pay for it? And it's a lot of cynicism. So we started talking about why is that? And what we decided was that a lot of these guys, like myself even, that are putting in hard time in the woods and hunting and scouting, they're a little bitter that this guy went out, paid a big fee, killed this thing over the weekend, and didn't earn it in their eyes. And I'm not knocking the guy that pays it because some people don't have time to scout, and CEOs of a big company don't have time to go out and spend 70 days in the woods. So I get it, but I'm telling you how we got to the idea of the score. So we're looking at that and we say, well, what are the other things that matter besides the antlers of a deer? There are other things that count, like maybe this guy that is bitter about the rack size, maybe he actually shot his deer with a bow at 80 yards or 60 yards or 50 yards. 80 yards is kind of crazy, but you know what I'm saying? Like to maybe there's a skill set there that the other guy didn't have. So we start talking about all these possibilities, and we built this scoring system to basically showcase the parts of the story that an antler alone doesn't tell. and which makes sense, right? Because when you get a deer and you go tell your friend, the story does not begin and end with like it was a 130 class, or like you're not gonna be like it was a 175 and that's it. You're gonna be like it was 14 degrees, man. I've been sitting out there for 8 hours, and then he came out at 30 yards, and I thought I was going to get a good shot, but then he almost got out of range, and I shot him at 45, and I knew I was stretching it a little bit, but I shot him anyway. You're going to go into detail about this thing. So we built and you're a user, so you've seen it. You can, when somebody posts on our app, they even tell the story in a different way than they would on Instagram. Instagram, people post it, and it's like, feel blessed to have harvested this deer tonight, or I'm excited to have harvested this deer this year. But we did even something differently, and we asked for people to tell their story, and that's really prompted people to tell. I mean, it's like a full paragraph people write on there sometimes. And honestly, we've hit the character limit like 2 or 3 times now. We've had to expand the character limit because so many people were talking so much about their hunt. So this whole scoring system has been really different, and it's something that's really cool to watch grow. So people are sharing deer that they might be embarrassed to share on an Instagram, and that's what it's all about. So the scoring system gives you, it's a proprietary patent pending score that we've developed with one of our analytics guys, Zach. He's brilliant, and Zach built this whole thing, and it compares turkeys. It'll look at bass, trout. They all use the same algorithm to create a score for the animal. And then that feeds into your profile score. So that's what's another thing that's really different about us. And right now the score is just for fun. I mean, really, it's just competitive. So all these people are logging their archery time or their cook amount of time cooking or running or whatever it is. And we've got people asking like, I got to get horseback riding in here. I could really earn some points if we had horseback riding. So we added horseback riding. So all that's really different that you can do that, and all that stuff feeds into your score. And right now it's just for fun, but eventually I'm not telling why. I've just been telling people you're going to wish you had points because we've got a really cool program we're going to roll out towards the end of the year with the points. And then the last couple things that make us unique are the recipes, which are really just important to us from a mission statement side of things, because I believe if we can teach people to cook better, we can make them more passionate about hunting because they realize the potential of the meat. I'm one of the people, I grew up thinking that deer was gamey. I mean, I didn't know anybody that was cooking it the way that Jeremiah Dowdy does, or Hank Shaw's. I like Hank Shaw is the food Bible. I tell anyone and everyone I can about. You've probably seen me posting about that book this week because I've been so pumped about this jerky I made out of it. Yep. It was so good, dude. But if you tell people, or if you show people how good it can be, they become interested in it. And I've had that experience myself. I had a coworker who, over the span of a year of me giving her deer, and her being, I didn't know deer could taste that good. She learned that deer wasn't what she thought it was before. She got interested in hunting, and then she sent me a snap about a month ago, a Snapchat of her and her husband taking their online hunter's egg course. So they're going to go deer hunting for the first time soon. So that's what it's all about, is really showing people the potential for the meat. Because to me, that's what it's all about. I think that's what it's all about to most people. I mean, I know a lot of the anti-hunters get caught up in trophy hunting and, you don't only care about that, but that's really not, most people I know don't care. Like, I'm happy if I can get a 10-point versus an 8-point, but at the end of the day, the past 3 deer I've shot are not even really mounted. They're like laying on my workbench in my garage, and I appreciate those and I like those as memories, but they're not like what I really like is the meat in my deep freeze that I get to share with friends and family, and that's how I relive my hunts, is through the food. So the recipes has been just a really important thing to me. No one else is doing that. There are some other people that are doing some trophy stuff similar to us in terms of they store it. They don't have their own score or anything, but they store it. I think ours is the more robust product there too, but nobody I know of is doing wild game recipes like we are and pushing it and letting people share theirs to an audience like we do. And then the final thing I'll say is just the giveaways, man. I mean, they're just fun. I know people are almost oversaturated with giveaways from Instagram, but we do ours differently. It's not about tag a buddy and all these vanity metrics. We really try to get people to get engaged with the product. And, that is one way we're going to monetize the app. I'm sure everybody knows we're not doing this for free. Servers cost money. but the right now we've worked mostly with brands just to help small brands like us get off the ground. Pretty much, I'd say 90% of the brands we've worked with have been just to start building relationships in the industry. And we've got quality standards that we're meeting. You know, I'm not handing out just anything. So people are noticing that we're giving away really, really good quality stuff. And we've got even more of that slated for this year. So Vortex, Yeti, I've got some really cool hammocks coming up this year. Dark Mountain's going to be a giveaway we're doing soon. And then we've got some huge giveaways, like thousands of dollars in value for some of the stuff coming up. If I can work it out, we're still in the details, so I don't want to say exactly what that is, but I think some of these are going to be huge that, people will definitely want to get some chances in to win some of these upcoming giveaways.
That's super exciting. You talked a lot about kind of those, I think you called them the vanity metrics. And that's one thing that's also very, we touched on a little bit earlier. You're not following people. So on the other side, like as a user, you're not trying to build a following. And it's, you're not even your posts, they're very, you can go through your profile and view them all and you can scroll back through, but it's a stream, it's not, it's constantly coming. It's not focused on, let's see what the most popular posts are. And so I can go like those too and see who I need to be paying attention to. It's fresh content. It's new. It's just such a unique take on it. And I think you guys just sent out an email about it. Even really, it was some what was it? Yeah. What was the subject line? Don't be a butt kisser.
Yeah. I'm just so it's exhausting, really, man. If you're trying to grow if that's a big focus of yours is to grow an Instagram platform, it's exhausting. I'm doing it because I'm trying to market our app. I mean, so I am that guy. Psychologically, if a post on GoWild on Instagram does not get 1,000 likes, I'm like, oh man, that one wasn't as good, and it's like, what does that matter? It might got 1,000 likes, and when you look at the stats, 80% of them didn't follow your page anyway. So it's like, they're never coming back. You're never going to see those users again. So 1,000 likes from people you don't even know don't matter. But yet here we are. We all like to see that. I think it's like anything else. It's been proven that when you get a notification on Facebook, you get that little hit of, I believe it's dopamine, gives you that little spike in your brain. It's the same thing with the vanity metrics. And, GoWild's going to change over the next year because we're going to eventually hit a saturation point to where we have too many users creating content. And it's the new, if you can imagine if, with what we have right now, if that tripled, which we're projecting that it will be 7 or 8 times what we have right now by December. So you can imagine the amount of, content flies there. We're getting hundreds of posts a day. So if you had thousands of posts a day, then the news feed would be too fast. The trail mix, it would be moving too fast. So we're going to have to figure that out. There's a little bit of an algorithm right now. It's not as sophisticated as I'd like it to be, but you got to start somewhere. But over time, very soon you will be able to follow people, which will be cool because the way that'll work, and I should probably back up and explain real quick how the content works. So when you onboard with our app, we ask you if you like to hunt, fish, or just enjoy the outdoors. And based on that, we're going to pre-populate some content for you. So we knew out of the gate from some research we had done and some books we had read. And if anybody's interested in app development or the psychology behind this stuff, I'd love to give you books that I found really helpful. But I knew from research that Twitter, for example, they know that if they don't get you to follow 33 people, that you're likely to do what the industry calls churn. So when you churn, you're gone forever. So we're like, man, that's really scary that you have to have that kind of push to get people to, like, that's a lot of work for a user to have to do that. So we decided we weren't going to do that. We took the Reddit approach to where you tell us what content you would like, and then we're going to put it in front of you based on the topics that other people are posting. So if you like hunting and I like hunting, you might go in and customize your hunting trails to be more about elk and deer hunting, and I might be turkey hunting and mule deer or whatever it is. You can really get in there and customize the trails.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. I wish, one of these days I'll start doing video podcasts and I'll be able to show it. Oh, it's refreshing my posts here. Let's see. Where do I go to customize my trail?
So if
there
you
it
look,
is. It's the second icon there.
Yeah, and even that icon's going to be changing in the next few months. We've got a really big plan to. I haven't told anybody about this, so this is kind of cool. I guess I can tell. Yeah, we'll tell about it. So that screen with the compass there, we call that the explore page. So right now, there's archery, bass fishing, big game hunting, bird hunting, and it goes on. I think there's 50 some trails in here, and a lot of them have nothing to do with hunting or fishing. A lot of them are, there's survival, there's state parks and national parks, there's nature photography. There's one called Sage Wisdom, which is the internal joke of our team. Donovan, one of my guys, fought to get that in there, thinking that people would have these quotes of wisdom in it, and now it's just like we're trying to get it out there because we hate it so much.
Hey now,
have you posted in it?
That's where I always post all my podcasts. It's always in the Sage Wisdom stream.
Are you kidding me? Okay, I'm looking through there, and you and Donovan are the only ones posted in Sage Wisdom. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll have to keep it now because I see Chip Honeycutt's posting in there too.
But yeah, no, I was going back and forth, and I was thinking okay, it's a podcast about bass fishing or about hunting or about this, but I'm like, but it's not really like hunting itself. It's talking about it, and it's those stories, and it's that wisdom. And I'm like, this seems like an appropriate spot to put it. And
that's funny, man. Well, you might have just saved that trail because it's literally slated to be gone maybe as of tonight. I'll have to talk to I should probably note to these dudes that hey, don't kill. We call him Pap. What do we call him? Papal Sage, I think. We've been joking about it. I got to tell him now, right now. Don't kill Sage Wisdom.
Am I gonna have to make up T-shirts that say "Save the Sage"?
Yeah,
it's like I'm gonna start hashtagging that on all my posts on Instagram now.
All right, I told the team because literally at the start of our call, I got the next version of GoWild, the test version, sent to my phone, and I'm pretty sure it kills the Sage Wisdom Trail. So, I just told them not to kill it. So we'll hang on at least for a little bit longer. But so that you were asking, I think the original question was how do you customize your content, right?
Yeah. So just talking about those trails there.
Yeah. So from that compass, you can go in and there's rock climbing, for example. So if you click on rock climbing, you'll see an unfollow if you've signed up, or you'll see a follow. So whichever one you click, obviously it's going to pull you that type of content, or if you unfollow it, it's not going to. So the same thing, you can go through, and if the little checkbox means you're following it already. So if you, the DIY trail was one that I thought was probably going to end up getting deleted, but all of a sudden all these guys are posting this beautiful woodwork in there. So I think that one's going to make it now too. But that one's been really cool. So people should check that out. Cody Rich says that's his favorite one. Nature photography, lake life. There's all kinds of different ones you can tap into, and if you're following it, you can unfollow, or if you're not, you can engage with that one. So over time, though, the plan is that we'll have one in there called Buddies. So you can actually just look at what your friends are doing, or your buddies will get pulled into your trail mix. So if you posted into Sage Wisdom and I wasn't following that, but I'm following you, I'm going to see that either way. So that's that evolution of the trail mix, and that's just the first step. Even then, eventually we're going to have to figure out. There's a reason that Twitter eventually went to a interaction-based newsfeed instead of in timeline, rather, for them, I think is what they call it. Eventually you just get too big that you can't have everything surfacing through. So I think now I've seen stats that 70% of the posts on Instagram don't get seen by anybody. That's kind of blows your mind when you think about it, but it shows the value in being able to use the platform in the way that they want you to, using hashtags and tagging people, blah, blah, blah. But, I don't want ours to ever be that much of a desert. I want people to get something out of it. And that's honestly, when I'm talking to guys, like I've talked to Vortex a couple times, and I've been pretty upfront with them. Like, look, I know you're looking at us, and you're like, what's the value? Because you guys have, half a bajillion followers on social media. But for a guy who has 500, or even people that have up to 1,000, I've had some of my posts go wild, get better engagement, especially on the comment side of things. When you look at the comments, Go Wild is a much more active place for comments because it's a more intimate platform. But even likes. I mean, I'll put something up on my personal Instagram, and I've got about 1,000 followers. And if it hits 100, it's going gangbusters from my personal account. But like pretty average run of the mill is like 30, 40, 50, and Go Wild posts are doing that. So if you're a person who's got 100 followers, and that's probably, I mean, the average Instagram following has to be pretty small. The average person probably has a couple hundred followers. I know you've got a couple thousand, so you're on the higher end of that metric, but somebody like that is going to get more reach by using our platform because they didn't have to build their following up. They can throw that content out, and it's there for thousands of users to see whether or not they follow that person or not.
All right, let's take a quick moment right there to hear a word from one of my partners.
All right, y'all, I'm not afraid to admit that I'm a huge geek when it comes to games, and well, let's face it, a lot of other things too. However, when it comes to nerdy card and board games, I really can't get enough. So when I found out there was a card game out there combining two of my passions, hunting and nerdy adventure games, I really had to pick it up. The game is called Gut Pile, and the goal is to build the ultimate Alaskan hunt. You do so by collecting several cards including animals such as grizzly bear and moose, hunting locations like Yonder Mountain and Nunya Creek, as well as weaponry, gear, and transportation. But make sure you've got tags or donuts handy because you never know when an Alaskan state trooper will drop in unannounced. It's a great game and a ton of fun for hunters who are inspired to share stories about their past hunts, as well as non-hunters who can be brought into discussions about hunting in a very non-threatening way. If you'd like to learn more, check out my podcast with the guys at Gut Pile Games by visiting livingcountryinthecity.com/22 and get $5 off your order from Gut Pile Games by visiting our partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners.
So, talking about those trails, I do have one huge request. This is me getting to use my solo time with you to make my own personal requests.
That's why you wanted to do the podcast.
That's
to get
the
your complaining.
Sole reason, so I could complain about the product. And it wouldn't surprise me if this is already in the field, but people are lazy. I mean, I know because I'm OCD about this kind of stuff. I like going in and I like, what's the best? Like with the Sage Wisdom thing, I sat there and I agonized over which is the best category to put these in. I want it to be in the right one.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh gosh, this is awful. There needs to be, but barely anybody else is like that. I feel like there needs to be some way where you can like flag a post, not to report it as like inappropriate, but be like, yeah, that's not general. That's definitely bass fishing. Or you accidentally selected. One time I accidentally selected instead of hiking, I selected hunting. I logged my time, and that applies to whether you're logging something or whether you're on a trail. Because to be honest, like I love fishing, but I was getting overwhelmed with all like the bass fishing posts. So I unfollowed the bass fishing trail, and I noticed I'm like, I'm still getting all the same bass fishing posts. And then I looked at them, I'm like,
general, right?
Yeah, they're just all. It's like that's the first thing up, so boom, it's in there.
Yeah. So that is a challenge right now that we're looking into. One idea that we have is that you could tag multiple trails, because I don't personally like the way it's set up now. This was an easy way to get it running, but the product's got to get better, or if we get better, we won't succeed. So one thing we're looking at right now is how to evolve that, similar to what you're talking about. Now, part of what you're talking about was a reporting system. If somebody mistags something, you could do something about that. I think that's a cool idea. I think that's like on the wishes and dreams list I would have, like those are nice to have things, but I think a more must to have thing right now is to make the posting experience better in general. Now we've got a really slick keyboard improvement coming out that's going to change the trophy logging process and really make that a little bit more streamlined. So I think that'll be a good first step. But then I really want to figure out how you can tag up to. I think 3 is a good number. I don't have any reason for that other than I don't want it to become like hashtags on Instagram where you can use up to 30. I want it to feel more intimate. But maybe you can do, because some things are going to overlap, like Sage Wisdom and a podcast about hunting. You might throw both of those, right? So that's an improvement we're looking to make. But then there is the challenge of one thing I liked about the idea of our app was that hikers could come to it and not, they could experience for what they like. But if guys are throwing pictures of dead coyotes up there in the general Slack, or the general trail, you can tell I use Slack a lot. But if they're throwing it in the general trail, then the hikers who don't hunt are not going to hang around for very long. So, I think that is maybe there's something where we do, like if it gets reported a couple times, then it gets sent to us to reclassify or something like that. That's something we've talked about. And we have enough it's not like Instagram where there's millions and millions of followers where that would be like, there's no way you would have a team. You'd have to build an algorithm to do that. Like we could still manage that ourselves. Yeah, I think that is definitely a challenge that needs to be solved for.
Even if it was just like, okay, you see in someone's post, you see what the trail is. Like maybe it's, tap on that, it brings up the contextual menu and it's like reclassify and, and then you guys figure that out, whether that's, you do it yourselves or whether that's like 5 people say to reclassify that, then it gets automatically switched or it notifies the user and says, do you want to reclassify or so-and-so suggested that this gets moved from general to bass fishing. Do you want to reclassify? Then you can even just put it on the users, and it's it's not bulletproof, but probably a lot more of those will. Yeah,
one thing we've talked about was giving our field staff and pro staff, not pro staff, we ended up landing on brand ambassadors, was giving them some unique abilities to do stuff like that. So we might end up somewhere like that where essentially it's like a Reddit moderator, where they have limited controls, but they could do something that like that. They could at least raise the concern sooner than maybe a normal user could. We may end up doing something like that. I'm not sure. There's a lot of that stuff that's in discussion right now. The biggest focus for us has been updating the species. The algorithm itself, we've been doing really good. We added 6 this week or 5 this week and 5 last week. So,
and this is just to clarify, this is talking about trophy logging, right?
Within the trophy log, yeah. So you wouldn't, it's not as easy as just putting in the I think a lot of people don't, and I get it. It's a new concept, but we don't just pull in the species name. We're actually doing the scientific research behind these things of looking up the averages on the weight, the length, and if it's an animal that has unique features. We had to redo the scoring system to be able to get the sheep in there. It's a very different system on how you score sheep. Bears was a big challenge because it's a very different system, and even the bears right now are not perfect. I just got some feedback this week on improving the elk. A guy who hunts a lot of elk, and I've never hunted elk, so I told him, I was like, dude, I really appreciate this because I'm a whitetail guy. I don't know anything about elk hunting, to be honest. I know what I've learned from podcasts, but I don't know. And when it comes to scoring an animal, I don't know. And he was telling me, he's like, you basically don't have the inch count. It would be like stopping a buck at the spread at 17 or 18 inches. And I was like, oh, okay, I understand what you're saying. Like he basically said we needed to increase our maximum, and we're doing that. That's the cool thing is like you're telling me something right now that you think would be a good idea. Come Sunday when we have our group meeting, we're going to talk about it. Like we address all of the suggestions that come through, and people suggest species. I go in and I talk to Zach and I say, hey, this guy wants to add chuckers or partridges or whatever it is, and that gets bumped to the priority list because we want to help people with what they want to do. Otherwise, we're just going to do what we think is important, which has been, it's good. It's gotten us so far. We've got 80 species you can log in the app right now, and those have all taken between 3 and 5 hours each to research. So you can quickly figure out the amount of time we've got just into the research portion of that. That's not even counting figuring out how in the heck you do a algorithm like that. I mean, the math and all the buckets and how it works, I don't fully understand it. I mean, it's very complicated on how he's pulled that all together. So, but people have direct input on it. I mean, if somebody comes in tomorrow and asks for sharks, which actually I think that's already on the list, or whatever it is, something that they want to add, we're going to do it. So,
no, it's especially for an app that's only a year old, it's amazingly robust. It really is.
I think we're 6 months old, man. I think we launched in September. So you're thinking beta. I was telling you my beta. Oh
gosh. So it's only legit released 6 months. Wow.
We launched on September 8th or something.
That is.
So that beta phase, that beta version that went up, man, was like a polished dog turd. it was like, I look back at it now and there was so much stuff that's broken on it, and like it was so bad, and I'm a little embarrassed by it, but it was also, I mean, like, for example, I don't even think you could comment on stuff, or if I can't remember exactly what it was. I think at some point there was a version of it that was so bad we were like, oh, we shouldn't have added anybody into this. We were so excited to get people into it. That might have been like the beta, the first version, because I think we only had 6 people in that, and then the version that rolled out to the 100 or so was really rough though. But yeah, that we tested for 3 months, and then it got into the App Store a little bit after September 1st. So
okay, gosh, that's even more impressive. Yeah, I guess that didn't click when you said the beta was a.
Yeah, I confused you because I didn't tell you the actual launch date.
Yeah, I'm very easily confused. That's not. So one more thing, and this is once again, then I will stop boring the listeners with my product feedback. But I don't know if I just don't know how to do it, or if it's not in there. But editing posts.
Yeah, that doesn't. It's not a thing, and honestly, like. We keep saying, all right, we're going to do it this time. We keep saying we're going to do it. And then we get, we're like a dog. It's like, oh, squirrel. And when we run off, and all of a sudden we're adding this really cool feature. And then people are like, could you just add the edit post thing? And it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to do that. And then we see another squirrel. And literally I'm fairly confident that has been on the to-do list for like 4 or 5 weeks running. And we just keep. Like, oh yeah, we should totally overhaul the keyboard, instead of adding something simple like that.
Okay, that honestly makes me feel a little bit better, because I'm like, it's probably in there, and I'm probably just like the dumbest person in the world. It's like some little dot that I didn't see and is super obvious to everyone else. But okay, I don't feel so bad now.
No, I think it'll be like the 3 dots that once you post, you can tap it. For your own post, it'll say edit. And then, with the other post, there's that report feature where you, if something's inappropriate, you can have it taken down. So, which we haven't had. We've had a few. We had a guy who, I don't know if he was actually poaching or if he was just being silly, but we looked at his account for about 3 days, evaluating what he was doing, and this is where it's really hard. It's a lot harder than I think we even realized it was going to be. Okay, we're a channel, we're a platform. This is not like, how much are we going to curate the content, I guess is the question I'm saying. Like, that is a very hard question. And a lot of times, things are coming in and I might personally disagree with the person, or bad language is something that we have been like, that's like really raunchy. Do we let that roll? Because I have so many kids in the app. That's what, you've seen, like, there are a lot of 12-year-olds. I mean, like, really young, and they're like, my parents won't let me have Facebook, but they said GoWild was okay. So, when I see guys dropping like this, like, really, really awful language, I'm like, oh, I want to delete that, but that's not for me to decide. That's why we have a downvoting system, though. Facebook doesn't let you downvote. You can just report things. So ours, we have a few different layers of what you can do. So the poacher, we're looking at his content and we're kind of waiting to see what the community does. Well, everything he was putting up was getting like 20, 30 downvotes on it. And then I couldn't tell. I was like, I think he's poaching, but I can't tell. But then there was finally he was talking about spotlighting deer. And I'm like, all right, that's it. Like, you're out of here. So we booted him. We deleted him. And I think after that, I did. I posted something to the community from the GoWild account and just told everybody, like, look, we're here to support hunting and conservation, and if you don't like it, you will be booted. Like, or if you don't agree and create content that's in line with that mission, you're going to be out. Now, that doesn't mean you have to always post hunting content, but it does mean that if you come in and you're an animal rights activist harassing people, you're going to get booted. That's in the terms. Like, that's what you signed up for. This isn't your First Amendment free speech. This isn't what we're all about, is to give you your platform. If you want that, Twitter has made it very clear that they don't want to censor people. But for our app, you're going to promote conservation efforts. So, in my opinion, anybody's opinion, poaching is not at all something that's admirable. It's not at all something that's good for the wildlife. It's not good for the public image of hunting. So we deleted the guy, and we keep an eye out for that stuff. A guy, there's even sensitive subjects, though, of animals that you're just not used to seeing, because we got a lot of people overseas that log stuff, and Australia hunts essentially house cats. Like, when you think about that, like there are things that we see as Americans, and it's like, oh, that feels wrong, but it's only because we're not exposed to it in the same way that an anti-hunter isn't exposed to hunting.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever do you watch Meateater?
Yeah, man, I've seen a lot of the episodes on Netflix. Now, I burned his podcast up, but
Yeah.
I've seen probably 15 of his shows.
So there's one of the episodes on Netflix. He was I can't remember. It was like some crazy remote tribe in Ecuador or something. He's like out hunting and fishing with them, and I remember he goes out and there's this whole show where they go out and he's like, so what are we hunting? And they're like, well, whatever we see. Like,
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah, it's weird. I've seen that episode.
yeah. And then they end up shooting a monkey, and he's like,
Yeah.
he's sitting there and he's like freaking out. I remember, because he's like, I don't know how to feel about this. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, I don't feel great about this, but it's like a sign that I have the luxury of having a problem with or having a problem
Yeah.
with eating a monkey. Like,
Right.
they're just like, oh, it's more food,
Yeah.
It was a very interesting, I think about that episode a lot. I actually
I do too.
talked with a lot of people about that one.
I do too. And yeah, that moment of having to decide how you feel about something, like, that's kind of what it's like with the app when you see people logging things. Like there was a guy just maybe today even, I don't remember, but he logged a feral goat in the app. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I didn't realize where he was. I still don't remember where it was, but it wasn't in the U.S. And I'm like, dude, did you just pop somebody's pet? Like, I'm trying to figure this out, And, you instantly have to decide how you feel about something and try to measure it morally. And it's really hard, dude. We skew, our rule is that we skew on the side of not taking things down. Unless it's very clearly illegal, then we're going to let it fly. Something got logged the other day where a guy actually, I don't want people to think that our app is all about this. This stuff rarely happens, but just to give an example of how hard it can be to decide, a guy logged a cat, and it was a feral cat that it was on his farm. And, I can't remember the name of the act. What's the species, or not the endangered species? I know that's not it, but there's like an act that protects pets, basically, like cats and whatnot. And so one of the users spoke up, and he's like, dude, I don't know if you know this, but it's illegal to shoot a cat. Like, you can't go out and just pop cats. So the community started regulating it. And it was one of those things, though, where it's like, it's on a farm, and he says it's messing with his animals, but then his animals that he's talking about are rabbits. And we're like, we're having like a very intense debate internally about whether or not to take this post down. And I think the ultimate decision was to let it ride. The community was obviously downvoting it and not supporting it. And it's like, well, I think the ultimate reason we decided to leave it was, if we delete it before this kid comes back, then we've robbed him the chance to learn. And because one of the users did a really good job of explaining to him of why this was, hey, you shouldn't do this because of X, Y, Z. Namely, it's illegal. So I think on that one, we let it ride so that he could learn. And that's what the app's all about. A kid probably doesn't know. And in his mind, he did the right thing because he wants to rabbit hunt, and he thinks this cat's out there wiping out the rabbit population. I don't know that I agree with that either. But so there are, like Ranella, it's not the same thing as eating a monkey, but it's like it's a miniature version of that. You have these little dilemmas where it's like, oh, I don't know what's right here.
And it's so situational. It's so often, like you said, it's different laws, different cultures, different sets of ethics, really. I mean, and there's some stuff that's pretty just blatantly outright wrong, but it's definitely, it's a lot more complex of a process, a thought process than people realize.
Man, I got blown up by a vegan last, and I always say this, I'm not attacking vegans. This guy told me multiple times that he was a vegan, so that's factual. It's not an attack on but this guy blew up our Instagram feed for 2 days, and I actually don't just block them. I will talk to them. I've had too many times, and by too many, I mean 6, 7, 8 times where I've convinced somebody that at least maybe they're not wholly right. So I thought I had this guy to a reasonable point, and then he just continued to it's like so black and white to him. And I don't even think – I think there's conflicts in hunting. Like I still don't know how I feel about certain types of hunting, but I don't judge people by it because the government says it's legal, and there's biologists that study this stuff that are smarter than me. So at the very least, I support it that other people can do it. I just haven't decided if I would like to do it. But to this person, any type of hunting is wrong. So I continuously ask him, because it was on a post that we did about some wild hogs, and he was blowing us up about how, killing is wrong. These animals don't deserve this. And I said, okay, but this animal is killing habitat for native species. This is a non-native species, ruining habitat for native species. They do millions of dollars in damage, which I'm leaving. Like, I could see an argument to say, well, property damage is not an excuse to take a life. I don't agree with that, but I can at least see it and say, okay, I could see how you could get there. But I kept asking him, I'm like, you're ignoring the fact that this thing is killing things that are supposed to be here, but this animal's not. So how do you deal with that situation? Totally disregards the question, like every time. And I kept like repeating it, and it finally got to the point where like eventually you have to cut bait and realize that the time investment is not worth it. So I finally ended up blocking the guy, and I even apologized to him before I blocked him. I'm like, man, I tried to reason with you, but at some point you just clearly like you're not being rational. So I've got to block you at this point.
Yeah, it's amazing sometimes. I mean, I don't know, this discussion I feel like is very apropos. I was leaving the office today, and I take the metro home, so I'm kind of sitting waiting for the metro, browsing all the different feeds, and a friend of mine on Facebook is just posting it's just this stream of crap, anti-hunter stuff, and it was, I think, some Croatian hunter recently got shot when he was trying to take a lion. I didn't really read the whole story. I just mostly saw what they were posting, and it was just a whole stream of, oh, there's karma, oh, good riddance, right, and all this. I'm like, and yeah, it was just one of those moments where I was very proud of myself for not getting into that pit, because I chose to cut bait, because it's just, you got to realize when it's going to be worth it, when it's not, and I don't know. I thought about some stuff, some stuff that I could post, and I was feeling very passive aggressive, and I just chose not to. Yeah. But I don't know. It came down. I'm just amazed. I'm amazed, and so I appreciate what you guys have been doing with GoWild a lot, and as a new hunter and someone, once again from the middle of Los Angeles, that I deal with this every day. Yeah, you're dealing with a lot more than you're living in a battleground, I would say. Well, and it's just, I work in the music industry. I've worked in advertising. I very not the most friendly of industries. Albeit I did have someone I just recently posted on my Instagram. It was recently my 2-year anniversary at my job, and I'd posted about it on my Instagram, and I had some dude randomly reach out, and he's like, "Okay, this is really weird, but my wife works for the San Diego company," and it's like just super weird coincidences. But so I think when you do find those people in groups like this, it's very it's a lot more tight knit.
Yeah.
You develop a lot more tight knit friendships at times, but
For sure.
But yeah, I really appreciate what you guys are doing with that, because it's a barrage all the time and it's exhausting. And as a new hunter, I've had to very quickly become educated on a lot of this stuff and conservation. And I mean, it's a good thing I like to argue on the internet and beat my head against walls, because you kind of have to, but it's exhausting fighting that off all the time. So having a place just to kind of chill,
I commented on, do you follow Jeremiah Dowdy from Field to Plate?
Oh yeah. He's actually been on the podcast before.
Oh, has he? Cool. Yeah. He's a great dude. He helped test the app too. But I was talking to him, I was giving him a hard time the other day, cause he posted, which he posts some pretty raw things. I think he likes to get a little bit of rile out of people, but he's also making valid points. It's like, it's always him dicing food. Like, these are animals that are going to become food, and I'm right there with him. But he definitely likes to poke the bear a little bit. But now he's super respectful. I don't want to give Jeremiah a bad name, because I actually love what the dude does. But it's like the dove breast photo that got taken down. Did you see what he did after that?
Oh, that was one of my favorite posts he's ever put up.
That was one of the best posts of the year. I mean, that was so good. But that's what I mean by when he pokes the bear. And for anyone that's listening and doesn't know, Jeremiah had 2 pictures of dove breast, and they were labeled as offensive and then completely taken down off of Instagram. So he put a bikini on the breasts and posted them again. And I think it actually made national news. It made it into like Wide Open Spaces and a couple other blogs, which cracked me up. But, I was telling him, he posted a picture of him. I think he was gutting a pig or something, butchering a pig that he had gotten on one of his hunting trips. And it was censored, and everybody's flipping out about, like, I can't believe this is censored, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I gave him a hard time about I said, well, I've never seen a post get censored on GoWild. And I just said it kind of in passing, and he came back and he made a really good point. And he said, we can't, I'm going to botch. He had a really poetic response, but he said, I'm tempted to pull it up, but it'd take me too long. I don't want there to be dead air. But he said something to the effect of, we have to, if you're going to heal those in need, you can't stay away from them, was kind of his point. If you're going to preach, you need to be around those who need to hear it. And his point being that we can't only post on GoWild. And he said, we need to post where other people can be exposed to it. And I actually came back and told him, I said, hey, man, because, my first comment was kind of a joke. And then I was like, well, I think maybe he misunderstood what I was saying. So I came back and told him that, I actually completely agree with him. I hope that GoWild can be the place, though, that you can post those photos that maybe aren't right. Like, I took some photos of my deer this year, got home, and I was like, I look like a madman. I'm covered in blood. I had blood literally like up to my elbow from field dressing the deer, and I didn't know it at the time, but I'd been kneeling in the blood, so it was all up my leg. And I was like, there's no way I'm posting. I didn't even post that photo on GoWild because I seriously looked crazy. But, being conscious of that, and if the tongue's hanging out, deal with that situation, and then wash off the blood and take a nicer photo that you can post if you're going to post it on Instagram or whatever, and then be a little more respectful about it. And then in GoWild, if you want to post, people are looking for educational content. So if you show how you butchered your deer, people are going to be into that on our app. It's a totally different experience. So that was my only point to him. I'm actually writing a column right now for the Houston Safari Club about that very thing of what we hope we can do with our app and giving people a place to learn where they can post these things and not get bullied. Because new hunters like yourself, I mean, you're of a maturity level to where you can handle somebody bullying you. But if you think of these kids that are first getting into it, social media bullying, I mean, you remember how much it sucked to be a teenager anyways. Can you imagine, like, when I was a kid, I at least got to go home, and if somebody wanted to pick on me at home, they had to call my house. You know, it's like that took a lot of nerve in general as a kid, and now it's like they can't get away, you know? So when you think about social media giving somebody direct access and to that kid's life all the time, and what bullying could do to them, I mean, it literally could change that kid's life that they're never going to hunt again. So that's what that's the thought that literally bothers me and sticks with me, and the thing I think we're all trying to solve for is how do we get this generation to post and be proud of it, but also to be safe. You know, GoWild's going to be partnering with Raise 'em Outdoors. Are you familiar with Erin's organization?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't have this official. I don't think she'd mind me telling this though, and she's doing great work, so I'm proud to say we're working with her. But part of their camps this year will be a Go Wild session where we talk about, you know, what types of things you should post on a public platform and how to be safe in that environment. And then if you have questions or if you have a photo that's a little more rough around the edges, post that in Go Wild. You know, that you're going to get support from the community from it. You can ask questions, and people, I have never seen anybody make fun of each other in Go Wild. Like, that's just not what people come there to do. So, you know, post the questions and the raw content there, and then just be respectful when you're out posting anywhere else. You know, it's going to be seen by somebody that could be turned off by it, and they could be turned off for life at that point. So,
yeah, and I think it's a developed. That's awesome because it's such a developed. I don't know, sense of prudence or whatever it is. Just it's not something really everyone has, and I get into so many arguments with people about like, oh, we should never have to kowtow to the antis, and I'm like, well, then you're gonna live in a world where hunting dies with you.
That's my point. It's not about honestly, the anti-hunters are never going to come around anyways. You're not winning them. What you risk losing are those people on the fringe that might have tried it. So if you post, like every time you post and it's a grip and grin photo with blood everywhere, and you know, I don't even mind grip and grins. I take them. I just think we all need to be aware of what posting that photo might present. You know, because here's the deal. If the trend is everybody's freaking out about this recent Fish and Wildlife study that shows hunting's dipping, I'm not as concerned yet. If there's another study that comes out and says it dipped again, I'll join that group. But you know, the last study before that from 2011 showed that it grew through the recession. So people spent more money on hunting through the recession. So if it dips again, I'll be with everybody freaking out. But I do think we should be concerned. But you know, if it trended the way, we lost another 2 million hunters, for example, where do you think all the money for these public lands and the wildlife, where do you think that's coming from? We all know who's the biggest supporter of that. So if you want your kids to enjoy it, then you better care about these photos, because every little bit matters, you know?
Definitely. So if people wanted to find Go Wild on the interwebs, where are they headed?
TimeToGoWild.com is the best place to find us to download the app. As of today, while talking to you, we're only on iOS, but I believe by the time this launches, if we're not in Google Play, we probably will be within a week. So come to the website. There's a sign up that you can do. If the app's not live there, we'll have a sign up still, so you can sign up to get notified when it does go live. But you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. It's all Go Wild app as the handle. And, you know, if you're not ready to download the app, you can at least see some good content along the way. But our blog is really cool. The blog on the website has a lot of unique content, and it's we just interviewed Hannah Finley, who was recently bullied by – actually, you should get her on the show. She is I haven't heard her speak, but written her interview, I thought she was like – had a master's degree or something, and she's 18. I mean, she is so well-spoken and thoughtful and intelligent, and, you know, that's the kind of representative we really want going forward. But we interviewed her and talked to her about the strife that came with that, and, you know, really the courage that she had to stand up to people and to not get baited into that and to not delete her account and hide from it. She really stood strong, and I'm proud of her. I don't even know her, but beyond the interview, but I was proud of her for what she did. And we did an interview the other day with Ali Schreiber, who was an anti-hunter who turned hunter. How often have you heard about that kind of conversion? So there's a lot of cool content on there, and we post all of our giveaways on there. So if people want to see what we're up to, they can check that out too.
All right. And now if folks wanted to follow you, where can they find you?
I'm Brad Luttrell everywhere you look. So BradLuttrell.
Forget for a minute how to spell that one.
We were talking so much about how to say it earlier. I'm like, wait a second.
The look on your face was priceless.
I'm like, wait a second. Am I Brad Luttrell?
Wait, it's got to be getting a little late over there. So you're probably getting.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock, and I've got baby brain too. My kid woke up. Not baby. I guess he's always my baby, but my kid woke me up early today after going to bed late. So I'm in like true dad mode right now of being tired.
So yeah, tired enough. We're starting to get existential here.
Yeah.
All right. So before we start floating off too much, as we're winding down, somebody came to you and said, hey, I'm new to all this. Maybe it's someone that just wasn't raised in hunting, or maybe it's a younger hunter that's just getting into it. Whoever that may be, saying I'm new to this. There's so much to learn, so much to do, so much going on. I'm super intimidated by getting into this. What advice would you give that person?
I would first ask what they wanted to do, of like what type of hunting, if assuming I can have a conversation with this person. And then I would really just tell them this is not about promoting my product. Like really my goal, as I hope people would pick up, is my goal is this person turns into a hunter who, the byproduct of will be a conservationist, the money that they spend. So I firmly believe that we've created the best environment to learn. So I would say, you know what? Don't start with the complicated gear. If they wanted to be a deer hunter, I'd say, okay, don't go out and try to do that with a bow first. You need to learn with a rifle. Go the simplest route and learn that first, and then step up as you go. But then post your questions freely within GoWild. The community is so supportive. There are guys. I'm doing it right now. I mean, I'm very open about the fact that I'm not some rock star hunter. I am mediocre at best, and this year I decided that I was going to get into bow hunting, and I'm posting questions, and I'm getting fantastic answers from people and how to. I mean, like very, very specific stuff. And if you go to look me up and GoWild and look at some of my archery logs recently, and these guys are giving me full paragraph answers multiple times to come back and try to help me learn. And I've seen that, and that's not just because I founded the thing and they're trying to get free swag. These guys are just like truly invested in everybody in the app. And I've seen a guy post in our app that he I guess he randomly saw an ad for it or something, and he had been thinking about getting into hunting but was really intimidated by it. And he downloaded the app just out of curiosity, and he started asking questions. And over the span from, I think he signed up almost immediately, like mid-September when the app launched. And then over the span of 2 months, I watched him learn he decided to go all in. He started with the bow, which again, not what I would recommend for most people. I think it's a very challenging.
I don't know what kind of idiot would do something.
Yeah, I know. I was saying this. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Samuel started with a bow, but
and when did dumb stuff like chasing elk on public land.
You can do it. I'm not saying it's not the easy path, though. I think you would agree with that, right? Like,
without a doubt, not the easy path.
Yeah, like if you're really like, I don't want to over intimidate somebody. So the easier route is certainly to get a gun, and that's even what they'll tell you at a hunting safety course is like get proficient. Because the most ethical, and again, I'm not knocking you.
I know.
The most ethical way to hunt, though, is the way that you're the most efficient at taking down the animal. So learn the rifle first and start there. But our platform just offers a really great way to learn. And this guy came in and he was asking things like he's asking about brands of bows, and then he's asking about like, well, how do I find a place to hunt? And then, I mean, this is how novice he was. He said, well, if I get a hunting license in my state, do I have to get it in other states too? And it's like, yeah, I totally see how that would be confusing if you've never done this before. Like hunters now are like, oh, of course you have to get an out-of-state license. But when you think about it, like, no, why would this guy know that? And nobody was ever crappy to him. Everybody was cool. He even at one point was like, okay, assume I get a deer. How do I cut it up to fit into a Honda Civic? Like, you know, it's like, it was
That's
so
my
good.
favorite question of all time right now.
Yeah, it was so good. And I watched this guy grow over the span of 2 months, and it really made me think of me trying to learn back before GoWild. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know this guy, and I don't even know if he's going to end up hunting a deer or not. But I emailed him. I was like, man, I'm getting all emotional on you, but I just want to send you a shirt and thank you for using our product in the way that we wanted it to work. You know, it's been really cool to watch your story, and he's been a great user for us, and he's proof that that's the platform you should do. So my advice, the TLDR on that long response is, no matter what you're hunting, start with something simple. Start with a simple weapon, and then use a platform like GoWild where you have a safe environment to learn. If you try to take these questions to Facebook or Instagram, you're going to be misunderstood, and it's just not the way to go for when you're learning.
No, I was hoping you'd say that, because I really do think, I mean, it's a very safe place with a lot of knowledgeable people who are excited to help. It's that community you've created is fantastic, and so I was kind of hoping that's what you would say.
Yeah, asking questions is always best.
Well, man, thank you so much for hopping on the show. It was good talking with you. I appreciate you sharing your time with our listeners.
Absolutely. We'll have to, once fishing season slows down, if you're interested in a fishing interview, I'll get John on here, and you guys can talk about, actually he hunts too. John is, he's done whitetail, elk, and he's got some crazy stories, and a lot of people really like to hear about the pro fishing sport. The sport of pro fishing is just another world to me. So if you're ever looking for another GoWild guy, we'll get him on here to chat.
Sounds pretty good.
All right, man. Well, you have a good night. I appreciate it.
All right, y'all. That'll do it for episode 56 of Living Country in the City. Make sure y'all head on over to our show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/56. I'm going to post up links to the app and all of the socials for GoWild and Brad. Make sure you give them a follow. Get in the GoWild app. It is really an awesome community. The content is great, and you just really don't have to worry about that negativity that you so often can get on Instagram and Facebook. Also, please take a moment, head on over to the support page on the website at livingcountryinthecity.com/support. I really would not be able to do what I do without the generosity of my supporting listeners. But until next time, keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.
Did I say living country in the city?
You said living city in the country.
Ah.